All right, so when you picture ancient Egypt, what comes to mind, right? Giant statues, massive pyramids, and almost always, these giant statues are of men. But that's only half the story. The history of Egypt is just as much a story of incredible women, women who held enormous power, sometimes right out in the open, and sometimes right behind the crown.
So where are all the women? I mean, everyone knows Cleopatra, right? But here's the thing, she didn't just appear out of nowhere. She was the final product, the culmination of this long, amazing tradition of powerful women. If you really want to understand Cleopatra, you've got to meet the women who paved the way for her.
And wow, what a legacy they left. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to dig into the stories of 4 absolutely incredible women. Each one totally changed the game for what it meant to be a ruler.
Okay, so before we meet them, we need to ask a big question. How is this even possible? How could women become so powerful in ancient Egypt? Well, to get that, you have to go all the way back to the beginning, back to their creation myths, which, believe me, gave women a kind of divine power you just don't see in many other ancient cultures.
And this is the absolute key. In Egypt's main creation story, their most famous goddess, Isis, well, she wasn't some quiet background character. No way. She was the one in charge. The active, dominant partner, a super powerful magician who literally pieced her husband back together and brought him back from the dead. This idea of a divine, powerful mother figure created this amazing cultural foundation where female power wasn't just tolerated, it was seen as divine.
So with that divine blueprint in place, we get our first type of female power, the matriarch, the king's mother, whose power was honestly the bedrock of the whole kingdom.
Let's introduce you to our first queen, Hetepheres. We're talking over 4,500 years ago. She was the mother of Khufu, the guy who built the Great Pyramid at Giza. And get this is what's so wild. Her tomb was the very first thing built on the entire Giza plateau. The whole famous complex we know today, it all started with her tomb. Why? Because her son, the Pharaoh, believed he needed her power, her life-giving force, to be reborn in the afterlife. Just incredible.
And if you want proof of her power, just look at the titles they found inscribed on her golden carrying chair. You've got Mother of the King, Follower of Horus, but listen to this one. She whose every command is carried out. I mean, come on, that is not just some fancy empty title. That tells you she had real, actual authority in the palace. She was a major political player, the real power behind the throne.
But, and this is a big but, there was a ceiling. For all her power, Hetepheres was always the king's mother. She was the power source, but she wasn't the one on the throne. She was never the pharaoh herself. And that was about to change. Big time.
Fast forward about 1,000 years. A new woman enters the scene, and she wasn't going to be satisfied with being the power behind the throne. Oh no. She wanted the throne itself. Her name was Hatshepsut, and she pulled off one of the most audacious power plays in all of Egyptian history. Using her incredible political smarts and some seriously brilliant propaganda, she didn't just act as a temporary ruler, she went all the way and had herself crowned king. Her message was simple and shocking. Look at me, I am a pharaoh.
And she didn't just grab power, she held onto it for over 2 decades. How? With an absolutely genius strategy. First, she got that in a world where most people can't read, images are everything. So she started wearing the false beard, all the traditional gear of a male king. It was a masterclass in visual propaganda. Then she built this magnificent temple that was basically a giant permanent advertisement for her rule, literally carving her legitimacy into the mountainside. But she wasn't just about looks. She was a military leader, a conqueror who led armies, and she was a brilliant CEO for Egypt, reopening old trade routes and making the country fabulously wealthy. So after Hatshepsut completely shattered the mold, the definition of female power in Egypt shifted again. Our next great queen, she wasn't going to rule with an army and a fake beard. Her weapons were going to be her mind, her charm, and some very savvy diplomacy.
This brings us to Nefertari. She was the great royal wife of Ramesses II. And let me tell you, this guy had an ego the size of one of his statues. He was all about big, loud, in-your-face power. But while he was busy building monuments to himself, Nefertari was playing a different game, a smarter game. She was the soft power, the strategic brain behind the operation, the one handling delicate international relations.
And if you want to know her secret weapon, it's right there in her tomb. In this one incredible scene, she stands before the god of knowledge, and you know what she says? Not,
I am a beautiful queen. She says, twice for emphasis, I am a scribe. I am a scribe. In that world, being literate, being a scribe, was like having a PhD from Harvard. It was the ultimate mark of intelligence, and she used that intelligence, writing letters to other powerful empires, proving she wasn't just the king's beautiful wife. She was a major player on the world stage.
Okay, so let's recap. We've had the powerful matriarch, the warrior pharaoh woman, the brilliant diplomat, our last queen who comes along almost 1,000 years later. She's going to take all those playbooks and combine them into something totally new. She's the global sovereign.
Her name is Arsinoe II. Now, she's from a different era. She's part of the Greek dynasty, the Ptolemies, who took over after Alexander the Great. So she's living in two worlds, Greek and Egyptian, and she was a genius at blending them. She was this incredible political and economic strategist, combining ancient Egyptian traditions with modern Greek ideas. She set up monopolies, ran a huge and efficient government, and basically turned Egypt into the economic powerhouse of the ancient world.
And you can see her entire strategy just by looking at her crown. It's like a history lesson in female power. Check it out. The sun disk? That's the power of the divine mother Isis. The ram's horns? That's a nod to the god Amun, who the warrior pharaoh Hatshepsut claimed as her father. The tall feathers? That screams international prestige, just like the diplomat Nefertari. And finally, the red crown? That means she rules all of Egypt. She was literally wearing the combined power of every great queen who came before her. It's brilliant.
And this incredible combination of powers, this powerful inheritance, well, that's what was handed down to the one queen everybody knows.
See, Cleopatra wasn't some fluke of history. She was the heir. She inherited this incredibly rich playbook of female rule. She had the matriarchal power of Hetepheres, the absolute authority of Hatshepsut, the clever diplomacy of Nefertari, and the economic genius of Arsinoe. Each one of these women added a new tool to the toolbox, creating this incredible legacy that Cleopatra would then use to take on the entire Roman Empire.
It really makes you think, right? These queens didn't just sit around and wait for power to be handed to them. They grabbed it, they molded it. They used propaganda, their brains, money, and diplomacy to redefine what it even meant to be a leader. Their stories prove that leadership isn't some one-size-fits-all thing. It's something you create, something you shape, if you're bold enough to claim it.